The big news today is the Fisker Ocean made its European debut, but is it any good? What do you think? We've got all the news for you. Stick around as well. The ID4 just got a range boost. BYD get a big order of EV trucks, and Nissan have given the LEAF the world's worst refresh. And we'll tell you why if you keep watching. Stick around for the details. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Martin Lee, and I'm joined as always by Blake to go through the news this week on the channel. Welcome back. Let's go through some of the big stories. Should we start with Fisker? Because that seemed like a big headline to talk about.
Yeah, well, they made their European debut there at the the Mobile World Congress. Now, I know US, see, this is the one we talked about before, the Kia EV6 and the Ioniq 5. You know, we got a lot longer before the US guys. Not the case here, but we've got some more pricing now for Europe. You know, it's going to start off with the Fisker Ocean Sport. That's the 5-seater one, you know, 280 miles thereabouts WLTP. But it looks like you know, 37,500 in the US, but 42,000 euros in Spain, and about 35,000 pounds in the UK. So it's great just to get some indications on price. But do you think, is that going to work, Martin? Is it going to be competitive? What's it up against? What's your take on it?
If they can bring it in at 35 grand in the UK, $37,500 in the US, and in Europe, of course, there are various incentives that are probably more generous than we've got here as well in some of the EU countries. That's a stellar price. Look, they just need to create it, ship it, and give us the vehicle, because at the minute, it's a bunch of announcements. Look, I want to caveat that. I think Henrik Fisker is a great designer. And from looking at this car, those razor-thin lights at the back, the rear windows, the rear quarter lights roll down, that big 17-inch touchscreen that will go landscape to portrait, it ticks all the boxes. But in a world where there's great EV shipping, and 5 years ago, we would have spent all show talking about this car. But we now live in a world where great EVs are announced and then they're shipped. We have to be a little more strict on the credit that we give companies that make big announcements but haven't shipped. And so let's ship it. Let's review it. Let's get it to you in Ireland to drive it. You are our resident reviewer. And let's see. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I'm excited about any new EVs that are coming along. I like the design. It's kind of bold, a little bit different. You know me, I've said it kind of before, another SUV, but that's what people want. So, okay. But yeah, a bit like you, it's a case of let's get our hands on it. Let's have a look, you know, let's get production, which I think is meant to be later on in the year, with some delivery starting at the end of this year, and then maybe mainland Europe getting more in 2023. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Made by Magna in Austria. If you don't know, they've got form in making all sorts of small runs of interesting vehicles. They make the Jaguar I-Pace for Jaguar as well. Look, they know how to put a car together. I've no doubt if they make it, if we get there, it's going to be absolutely cracking. So we can't wait for that car to come out. But one of its big rivals is going to be the VW ID4. And in the US, VW of America announcing updated EPA figures for the ID4. Also, it got more expensive. The ID4 Pro runs on 19-inch wheels, 280 miles. That's an 8% bump in a range and a 13% bump in efficiency. Increases a bit more negligible really on the all-wheel drive versions, but it also got more pricey as well. Now, those cars still aren't being made on US soil. When they do, we can get the cheaper versions of the ID4 out. But every time my wife sees one at the minute, she's in love. It could be, I'm just saying it could be the next car we have to have, because she's a real fan of the styling. She's never even driven one, but every time we see one, she's like, I like the look of that. Hey, we have a child seat in the back. It would suit us. What do you think about this? They seem to be getting those vehicles a little bit better all the time.
Yeah, well, like, as we know what happened with the ID3, especially, they pushed that out early. Issues, bugs, whatever you want to call it. Let's not go down that rabbit hole now. But it's great to see them, you know, going through these iterations and making little improvements. And we spoke about it with Ford there and how they're going to be making smaller changes more regularly. So look, fair play to them. You know, like, the range is getting to a level now where it's quite decent. And, you know, that chasm, I was about to say gap, but that chasm up to the Tesla range one is, you know, it's closing. Obviously, many manufacturers are still far away, but it is closing. So well done, VW.
Brilliant stuff. Now, do you want to talk a little bit about some BYD trucks coming out of China, but destined for Europe? Tell us more.
Yeah, well, look, we love our EVs here. We love our cars. We talk a lot about those, but getting trucks, getting taxis, getting vans to go electric away from diesel is so important, you know. So great to see BYD, major Chinese company that, you know, a lot of people in the Western world haven't really heard of that much, but they've got their largest order outside of the US, which is great to see. And it's from a company, a Swedish company called Einride, and they are a freight technology company. They were looking into AI and, you know, autonomous driving and things like that. But yeah, 200 of the Class 8, I'll have to look back to my notes, the Class 8 BYD ATT cab, could be other parts of that name, I can't remember, trucks over the next 12 months. So yeah, it's brilliant. Big battery in it, Martin. Did you see that?
Yeah, 563 kilowatt hour battery for 200 miles of range. Now, BYD, yeah, they're in China, they're in the US as well, and they have big ambitions to sell vehicles in Europe. And this is a great way to start in terms of getting those vehicles away from diesel and onto electric power. Fast charging, 185 kilowatts, which sounds quick, but it's a 563 kilowatt hour battery. So I don't know, maybe that's...
I'm hoping we got something wrong there, Martin. You know, can they plug it in from both sides of the truck or something like that? Maybe it's different modules. I don't know.
There got to be something. And as I've been talking about recently to people, maybe battery swapping with trucks is the way to go. In China, CATL are doing this with a trial on their truck routes, which are point to point. So they know where they're going to be every day. And actually, rather than putting in a massive battery, which is resource intensive and very heavy as well, which can reduce the payload available if the battery takes up some of that in terms of weight of the vehicle, possibly battery swapping with trucks could be a market we haven't talked about yet on this program. And maybe we will in the future, because, well, if you can build 4 or 5 battery swap stations on a 1,000-kilometer route that you do every single day, smaller battery, swap it out, get on the way again. Seems like it could be a good solution, but we want to hear from you in the comments below what you think about all the stories that we talk about on this podcast. All right, let's move on and talk about the MG hatchback that was teased. I've seen you talking about this on social media, so fill us in.
Yeah, well, MG4 seems to be what a lot of people are calling it. We don't know yet. Now, we know next to nothing about this. We saw the teaser clips. We had a few of those patent drawings. So what are the highlights? All we really know is a little bit from looking at the designs, and hopefully we've got some good B-roll of that up there on screen. But it's 4.3 meters long, and you can see it. It's a hatchback style, but, you know, it's tall. So this is bang on an ID3 rival, I think, which is 4.26 meters long. So what's 4 centimeters here? You know, these are almost the same size, a little bit smaller than the Leaf, or a Cat it might be going up against as well. So we need more details to decide, you know, how good is this going to be. But, you know, you can get reference prices from the MG5. Will it have a slightly smaller battery and be slightly cheaper? Maybe. Martin, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that there's some interesting technology at MG, owned by SAIC, of course. Now, there is the MG Marvel R, which we don't get here, but our European viewers do. And so I wonder if there'll be some of their next generation technology in this vehicle. Very, very interested in this. Now, you know, I own an MG ZSEV, and you've recently reviewed one for the channel. What did you make of the Chinese car?
Well, it's grand. It's okay. You know, is it hugely impressive in any way? No, apart from one. You consider the price and you go, wow, this is actually brilliant. You know, I think I said something like that in the review. I'm going, you know, the range is good, but it's not great. The interior quality is like, it's okay. You know, the infotainment system, the graphics inside, it's better than it used to be in the one that you have. Sorry about that, Martin. You know, in the upgraded one. But then you remind yourself, you pinch yourself, you go, the price, go, yeah, this is absolutely brilliant. So you have to frame your, you know, your points within that kind of reference. Yeah, absolutely. Really impressive what they're doing.
I completely agree. The infotainment system stinks. I'll say it now. But it's got Apple CarPlay. I never use the infotainment system. I just plug my phone in and it works brilliantly. There's nothing exceptional about the MG ZSEV. And is it one of the favorite cars that I've had in my driveway? Absolutely. Because it makes me smile because it does so much for so little money. Anyway.
And there's one point just to add on that as well. If we take the car that you own, you know, the older ZS EV, and even look at the older, the standard range MG5. Look at the changes that they're making as they go through the iterations. Like that latest ZS EV is just so much improved within the boundaries of price that we talked about, of course, so much improved. And I just know they've been listening to the European markets. And I went to the Irish launch of that ZS EV a few months ago. And the marketing manager there was a technical advisor, there was the country manager, and they were over to myself and the other guy that I was with. They're like, what do you think about it? What could we have done differently? We went for 7 kilowatts instead of 11 kilowatts AC. Was that a mistake? They were listening. They wanted to know what people think. Have they done this with the hatch that's coming out? It'll be really, really interesting to see how much they've listened. They take the best of the ID3, the best of the Leaf, and bring this together. We'll see.
Looking forward to that. Looking forward as well to Tesla opening Giga Berlin. Now, it should have been open last summer. Some say July was the initial deadline. We're clearly many months past that. It's a whole brand new year, but it looks like there is an end in sight if you're watching this video before it's opened. We think that we're perhaps 2 to 3 weeks away from Giga Berlin having its grand opening party. The Brandenburg Prime Minister, part of a so-called Tesla task force to meet and remove barriers to be dealt with. Hundreds of Model Ys are on site. They're allowed to build 2,000 of them before customer deliveries start. And so they should be getting used to making those vehicles. Now, we just want as many EVs on the roads as possible, but the German system of giving the permits and applying all the rules and regs has been definitely slower than Tesla would have wanted. We think an end in sight, though, yeah?
Yeah, well, light moves slower than Tesla wanted to. Yes, let's not go too tough on them, Yeah. Well, and do you see? Just talking about the Model Y there, the way prices have gone over in China as well. Like, you go back a few months, towards it was September, October last year, over in China, you could buy the Model Y for 280,000 odd yen. Even now, the used ones have gone above 300,000. I suppose they're having to ship so many of them over to European markets, aren't they? So they're not staying domestic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Although the used car market in China, as I found out recently, is not as popular as perhaps I would be used to. The used car market here, very vibrant. We love our used cars, at least in the UK. Whereas in China, turns out, as I found out recently, they do like their new cars a bit more. So very surprising that used Teslas costing more than the new ones. And our final story about Teslas, an original Roadster recently sold for over $250,000. It was sold by Gruber Motors. There's about 2,000 on the roads around the world. And this, for me, is where the mainstream EV movement started. The GM1, I give that full credit. Early Leaf, I give it full credit. But really, the original Tesla Roadster, by getting that out of the door, with those early Tesla founders, then with Elon Musk coming on board as well and adding that injection of money that he did, this, I think, was the start of the modern mainstream EV movement. These cars are crucial to the story of moving to electric vehicles. And that doesn't do any of the other great vehicles we had along the way down. But I pinpoint that moment in time. It allowed them to make the Model S. That allowed them to make the Model 3. That's the genesis for me of the modern EV movement. It's only right these cars will be appreciating assets. Now, if you owned one, let's play a fantasy game. If you owned an original Tesla Roadster in your driveway, your garage, would you drive it or not?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We spoke about this in the past, Martin. I'm if you've got something good, if you've got, a nice bottle of wine sitting on your shelf there, or a nice bottle of whiskey, or a nice car out in the garage, just drive it. Life is too short. Get out and live. That's my take. Now, with it, I'm not going to take that down stock car or rallying or something like that. But I'm going to go out for a nice drive through the local mountains here on a Sunday. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I think that might be padlocked away for me and undercovers and taken out just to make sure it's maintained, make sure the wheels and tires are inflated and that the battery is sitting at the appropriate level. I don't know. That would be my pension. But life is for living. You don't know when it's all going to end. And so just get out and drive the thing. And if somebody opens their door into it or something, that can all be fixed. I think you're absolutely right. But I'm not sure I'd be able to live out what I'm saying. All right, let's move on. I mentioned some of those early EVs, the original LEAF. Again, a very important moment in time in the story of electrification. But they are still selling the LEAF, and it's largely the same. Yes, LEAF 2.0 got a new body on top of what was largely the original LEAF. Looks entirely different. So many original parts carried over. And now there's a new refresh you can tell us about, Blake. Fill us in on the details.
A couple of new wheels, a little bit of paint. Next story. I'm sorry. I own the Nissan LEAF. Yeah. I'm sorry for being so flippant.
And you do own the LEAF, but it's not a refresh. They've put the new Nissan logo on, and that's it. So come on, Nissan. I know the Ari is coming this summer, but you can't put the new Nissan style logo on and have a new paint color and call it a refresh. You really can't. And hey, we're not being overly harsh. You own one of these cars. You're a fan. You love your LEAF.
Absolutely. Like you talked about the genesis of of EVs and the Tesla Roadster, but I really want to kind of, well, not disagree with you, but challenge just how important the LEAF was. How many EVs that got into the hands of just regular people on the road. Hugely important. So a new refresh, bit of paint and wheels, so underwhelming. But we've gone through Nissan and how they dropped the ball over the last decade, or nearly 11 years now since the LEAF came out.
Absolutely. All right. Final story then. I want to talk a little bit more about trucks, and the Tesla semi-truck takes up a lot of the oxygen in the room, as it were. People think that's the only game in town. There's so much more with electric trucking to talk about. Volvo, one of those companies that are producing 2 and 3 axle models. They're out this year. The Volvo trucks FL and FE have between a 200 and a 400 kilowatt hour battery, approaching 200 miles of range. And again, do you think that that's enough to get electric trucking out there? Because some of these diesel trucks can go for thousands of kilometers with huge fuel tanks. Can we do it? Can we get electric trucking realistically being used with that much range?
Yeah, well, it goes back to what you were saying earlier on about battery swapping and looking at the infrastructure and how we use it and how we transport goods. And it's part of a very, very wide conversation. Are we going to just be able to jump into a battery electric truck, and ship, let's say, some potatoes from down the road from where I am over to you, Martin? No, it's not going to get close to the range, let alone making it to Greece or somewhere like that. So a lot has to change. But look, we got to electrify them. So are we looking at pantographs, to charge and, like electrifying roads and stuff? I mean, some pretty crazy ideas out there, but 1 or 2 of them are going to be good. And we need 1 or 2 of them to stick as well.
All right, that's our show for today. Highlight for you before I give mine. No, last time I asked you first. I'll go first.
Yeah.
Highlight for me is definitely the opening of Tesla Berlin. Even though I'm not in the market to buy one of those cars right now, I just think it would be so important to have another factory, whatever manufacturer it is. And before I get accused of being a Tesla fanboy, just any factory in the world making electric vehicles is a good thing. Zero emissions at the tailpipe is hugely important. So for me, that's my highlight. What about you?
I'm gonna go to the MG teaser, I think, because I've driven a lot of the MG cars in standard range, long range, different ones over the last few years, and the way they're hitting lower price points is just brilliant. Like, I can't wait to see the size of this. I'm going to be trading up from my Nissan LEAF at some stage. Will this new MG be big enough to replace that instead of the MG5? But also, it's putting pressure on manufacturers to bring down prices to levels where they really should be, as opposed to where they are now.
What do you think about the stories today? We want to hear from you now in the comments below. And we're always checking the comments every day, so join in the conversation. Let us know what you think. Your highlights, maybe even your lowlights, you can share. That's all right. It's a safe place. Let us know what story captured your attention. And we have a new Facebook page as well. It's a group, actually, called Best Electric Vehicle. So if you are on Facebook, search Best Electric Vehicle. And if you want to post a picture or start a discussion topic, or even tip us off on some news that you'd like us to discuss on the next show, then that's the place to go. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. It tells us to make more like it, and we'll see you on the next one.